What's up, guys? Coach Ben here, Coach Ben Podcast. I'm usually joined by Jim, and he's off screen, but today I have a special guest, Dan Lukehart, also known as Trumpet Dan, the owner of Brea Jiu-Jitsu, one of my friends, I like to say he is one of my best kept secrets of the jiu-jitsu community, because he knows a lot about a lot of stuff in jiu-jitsu and also not jiu-jitsu. And I brought him on today because I wanted to talk to Dan about a very important topic, which is the reopening of BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies, how we're going to do it, and just if there's a plan of action, right? So I'm going to let Dan introduce himself first, and then we'll get right into it. Dan.
So first, thank you for having me. It's a kind of a cool adventure to be invited on this podcast, so thanks. So first, I think it's probably a very good thing to say that I'm an expert in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And likely that's all of our expertise in here, maybe with an additional couple of subfields that we're experts in. So I think it's important to get out in front and say that I am an expert in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I have a wide variety of interests they're scientifically minded, but those are outside my field of expertise. And I think in this age where we have a lot of people trying to be experts in infectious disease and in public health, that I get out in front and say that is not my expertise, but I can try and use my knowledge of just being scientifically inclined to try and come up with reasonable and safer ways to reopen jiu-jitsu academies.
Right. So, I'm just going to repeat what Dan said as well. Just, I'm not a expert on viruses or infectious diseases. I am not even an expert at owning businesses, but we are business owners, and we need to know what we're going to do. So we need to start, I've started to kind of brainstorm with other academy owners. Dan is a academy owner. You started your academy, Brea Jiu-Jitsu, in what year?
I think I'm not really sentimental in this regard, but around 2013. 2013, I think it is.
So it's been like almost 7 years.
7, 8 years.
Yeah, so you've been a business owner 7 years. I've been a business owner about 5 years. Jiu-Jitsu Academy business owner, own businesses other than Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm just going to dive right into this. How is your academy doing? What's up right now?
The academy is doing quite poorly. I mean, quite poorly.
Can we get into specifics, Dan?
Yeah, of course.
You mind? Like, can you give us what was your membership base at before this happened?
This will be very hard for you to believe, but I have no idea.
Okay.
And this is I have a very strange philosophy and approach to my academy just prior to going into this. And that's, I don't want to be too small and I don't want to be too big. And I let my wife say, we need more or we need less. And I already have a sense of what that is. And for me, it's very important. I know that there is a continual growth mindset. Like, I get pitched all the time by advertisers and people with martial arts marketing programs and everything. Look, we're going to double your student base. I don't want to double my student base. I want maximum at my gym 150 students.
Okay.
And this is based on a lot of different things. Beyond 150 students, we lose the ability to have all these one-on-one relationships because it becomes exponential, the amount of one-to-one relationships that you can maintain. And largely this is based on our evolution as a species. We evolved in small bands of 20 to mostly 80, maybe pushing it up to 150. We see this in modern businesses, for example. Businesses have a lot of difficulty getting above that 150 mark because they need to fundamentally redo how they do business. It doesn't work that same kind of folksy way of running the business. They need to start implementing policies and procedures that are probably more akin to how Gracie Baja does business, which is very, very hyper-organized. It's curriculum-based, attendance card-based. All of that stuff I want to avoid. And really, as you start to approach that threshold, it becomes very difficult. So to do the classes the way that I want to do them, I want to go into a class and I want to see, oh, there's Jamal, there's Dan, there's Johnny, kind of have a sense of what they've been learning what they know and what they don't know, and develop a class right there based on what I'm looking at of skills and knowledge and lack of knowledge, and fill that gap. And it can't do that as the academy gets too big. So probably you're looking at total around 150 students. And that's mostly I kind of structured all my classes and the amount of classes to where they're full but not too full when that happens. And when I see that not to happen, it becomes a little bit.
So could I ask you, before this
Yes.
pandemic, were you around 100?
Yeah, it's going to be around like a
that
standard in the neighborhood of 150. And,
Okay.
I really just don't know.
Okay, no big deal.
And so down to your question is post-pandemic, the kids are doing, it's actually a quite complicated question.
Mm-hmm.
I have about 12 kids. So in my kids program, we have 3 different programs. We have a juniors program, a kids program, and an adults program. I have about 12 kids that are doing the Zoom classes and being active members in the academy. And so you're looking at 8 to 9 on average for the Zoom classes, and those are the most successful. The kids program is the most successful out of that. For our juniors, our small kids, which is ages 4 to 7, we get a slightly less, probably around 6 to 7, with about 8 being active members. The
6 to 7 on Zoom.
6 to 7 on Zoom, with about a little bit higher than that being active members. As far as a financial base, they're not very much because I barely charge anything for the program. I charge $65 per month for the program. So, and versus $125 for my kids and my adults. And that depends on the skill level of the adults. I go down as you get promoted. So purple belts, for example, are $99 and brown and black are free. So the adults is the most interesting component because my adults are, my academy base is not one where you walk in and you don't know 20% of people in the class. And that's quite important because I think that we're all different the way that we run our academies. We are all longtime members, most of us, and know each other quite well. I think that's the case of a lot of small academies. On an independent academy, I think that's the case for my style of gym. Is that I have received less cancellations in the adult, but near zero participation in any of the classes. So probably active members to just lay the bare number on the line, we're looking at 30 to 35.
You're saying total? So you went from 150 to 30?
Something around this.
So there
That's
was that
the
many
ballpark.
cancellations?
Yes.
That's quite a high number.
Yeah. And when I say cancellations, because we're not going to like, what I didn't do is I didn't do what you did. I didn't say, all right, because I saw the sign on your door here where, all right, we're just not charging people.
Yeah.
We're done. And that may be a wiser strategy, and we can get into that. But what I did is just like anybody that was able to cancel can cancel, as long as they're not doing it like refund me for the past 3 months,
Right.
which we get all the time.
Happens.
And you know that constantly. I haven't been in 3 months. Like, why did you bill me for 3 months? Well, this is the first time we're hearing from you. We're not going to retroactively refund.
Call Netflix and see if...
this is no change from how we do things the majority of time. The majority of the time we're extremely lenient. What we do when people want just a hold, we'll just pause their contract and then just kick it out when they come back within reason. You know, if they want a couple of months to go meditate in the Himalayan mountains like Jamal does, then I'll do that and then resume the billing afterwards.
Right.
So we're pretty lenient. Now, my wife, for my sanity, handles all this because I don't want to ever look at a student and say, like, you left me last month or something like that. So there's a level of buffer. I just want to teach the people that come in and not hold any sort of resentment for people quitting or anything like that. And I think among the academies in the United States, we have the most kind of liberal policy that can be imagined as far as people switching academies and
Right.
all that goes.
I mean, you let everybody in, basically.
Let everybody in and let everybody out. I've had top competitors go to other schools. And it hurts, but I still welcome those people back to train all the time. And for a lot of people who have left in non-COVID-19 cases, they're still coming back regularly, and we're enjoying each other's company.
Right.
We're still seeing each other at the birthday parties and at the
Yeah.
watch UFC at Joe's
I have
house
the
type
same,
of parties.
I have
Yeah.
the same if anybody leaves, no big deal.
And I think that's a extension of California Jiu-Jitsu as well. It's
Let me ask you,
we're very liberal in that sense.
Let me ask you real quick, Dan, because I want to hit this subject while we glossed over it. So my academy is different from yours in many ways, right? In how, before this COVID-19 and after. So one of the reasons why you saw the sign on my door, I just paused all memberships and just said, look, if you want to donate, here's my Patreon. I put content on there. Great. If you don't have to. It's not been the most successful thing, but the reason I did that is because, one, I didn't feel that I had the capability to deliver Zoom classes to the quality that you were doing. And I would see your Zoom class, and I'd say, well, there's no way I can do this. So if this guy's doing this, and he's a one-man show, and this is all he does, how am I can't deliver value. So instead of, going through all these people eventually coming to pause and whatnot, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to pause everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the right way to do it, but
we're both between a rock and a hard place.
We're figuring it out.
Yeah. So here's where I think maybe that your strategy as a business owner might be better than mine, is that by getting out in front of it and saying we're not going to bill you, you're not relying on them coming back to you at a certain point. Like when you say I'm ready to open up, which may be before or after the state guidelines, like you can just say, all right, here's where we're coming, and I think they're more likely to come back. Will I see a rebound in membership? I don't know. And it's going to be rough. It's going to be extremely rough.
You had that many students actually contact you or your wife to cancel? or
Normally,
freeze?
I don't check my email.
Okay.
But it's very difficult not to check your email when it's not just like a couple of... Normally, I get a couple of cancellations, and, sometimes they'll message me on Facebook because all my students know I don't check that stuff.
Right.
They'll message me, and I'll say, great, wish you the best. You want to come to my son's birthday party on Saturday? That's like kind of what it is.
How often are you doing these Zoom classes? I'm curious.
So I'm doing Zoom classes between 3 and 4 times a day.
3 and 4 times a day?
Yeah, because I have to serve all of my classes. It's not crazy. Like
Wow.
I have the little kids 1,
Right.
I have the little kids 2, I have the kids, and then I have an adult dummies class, and then I have an analysis class. And the analysis class is available to the public. Right. I would make my Zoom classes available to the public for the dummy class for the adults, but the desire for people to do Zoom classes, quite honestly, is just quite low.
You're putting in like what I consider to be a pretty tremendous effort. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah,
that's a lot of time
to hold yourself accountable to 3 times a day when you're not even sure how many people are going to participate, or like you identified on the average of six people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but I will say that does show the commitment that you have to what you're stamping your name on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, your approach is pretty unique to the way you run your school. You say that you don't want to get any larger than 150 students, which makes total sense. Are you familiar with Dunbar's number?
Dunbar's number, is that the 150 in business, or?
Well, just in human life,
right?
in relation, where approximately you can only have the capacity to
yes, I am familiar with it then.
So I was just wondering if that was a conscious effort to...
It is a conscious effort. So like I have...
Well, explain what Dunbar's number is.
Well, I don't know it in the context of Dunbar's number. I know it in the context of human evolution. So like I've lived with hunter-gatherers as an educational experience for my kids. So we did a deep dive into hunter-gatherers and anthropology in general. So that's mainly where I think the what you were describing is more in a modern context, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, what it is it's just it's a number to identify the approximate amount of meaningful relations. Yeah,
it's the same thing.
So whether that's a modern identification.
Yeah, it's a modern manifestation of how we evolved as a species. And so, like, what I often try and do is I often try and go to the source. Like, hey, let's go spend a few weeks with hunter-gatherers and actually appreciate this on a intimate and personal level. So yes, that is it. And I find that so important to my health and well-being because I do not do this for the money. What you were saying before is I hope to pay my bills, and I hope to take my kids on educational adventures. Beyond that, I don't care. What you were saying before is that it's admirable on my end to do all these efforts for when, like in the adults classes, I have 2 people, 1 person, sometimes none on the weekend kids class. That's for both my sanity, because I do this because I enjoy it. I would do it for free. And I do it also, like equally as important to that is I have a social obligation in this lockdown and pandemic. You have, especially with the kids, you have kids that are locked at home and they're doing lip service school on Zoom, like some none a day, some an hour a day, and they have no outlet. For a lot of these kids, I always start by talking with the kids before class. How are you doing? What did you do today? Oh, tell me more about that type of conversation. And that conversation has gone from, I did nothing. And the only thing that is any sense of normalcy, which can't be replicated by any new program or anything like that, is seeing somebody like me who's a part of their normal life and doing that on a consistent basis, to where these kids are getting a little exercise. I mean, we still do a 20-minute exercise session, 15 minutes or so, and jumping jacks, push-ups. That is incredibly important to the physical and mental development of a child. So I see it as my duty as a contributor to society. Ultimately, we all need to reason with ourselves. What do we want to contribute to society with my profession? And what is your main contribution as a jiu-jitsu instructor? It's bringing up the health of your community and the mental well-being of your community. And if I were to stop that just because of the situation, it would be like a diagnostic testing medical company going, oh, we're not usually open on the weekends, so we're not going to run any tests. This is your time to rise up and to fill a much needed gap. And that's my primary, those 2 reasons, my own sanity for a sense of normalcy, and the sense of enjoyment I get in the second thing, which is to contribute to our society in a time when it really needs it.
Nice. And I think that's amazing, man, because a lot of people, I feel, say that, but to actually do that and put your money where your mouth is and actually do those Zoom, it's pretty, like you said, Jim, it's pretty admirable. The reason, when you said this, I think in my head, I'm like, man, I've never been that close to my kids' class. I have employees that run the kids' class for me, and so this is how our academies are different. We're going to get into how we can just brainstorm kind of how the academies can go on from now. But one of the major differences between your academy and my academy is, although we probably have around the same number of students, or had around the same,
yeah.
It's the same ish. I had probably around 100 and maybe 50 at the best time.
It's probably the same with me.
Yeah.
I just threw 150
Yeah.
out, but based on attendance
120,
patterns,
130 is like the norm.
That's what it is.
And so, but the difference is that, I have ADHD. I'm not one of these guys that can sit and run an academy. I'm doing 100 other things. I have other jobs. I just have a lot of other things going on. So I have, I believe at this academy, I have like 6 to 8 employees, right? And you're a one-man show.
One-man show.
So, there's so many things we can get into based on that alone. But one of the things we can talk about now is we both applied for SBA loans, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that business owners should be doing. Me and Jim talked about a lot on previous episodes. I got the $10,000, which is the initial grant from Small Business SBA, and I was approved for a PPP loan. But the thing with the PPP loan is it can only be used. 25% of it can go to rent, and the rest has to be payroll. Am I correct on that?
So, let's add a layer of detail and nuance to what you just said, because you said you applied for the initial SBA loan.
Yeah, that's the.
Let's just be super clear, and that's up to $10,000 forgivable loan.
Yes.
It's the disaster loan.
Yes.
So for those of you that don't know what he was talking about,
EIDL, I think,
and that's different from the Paycheck Protection.
Yes.
So talking specifically about the disaster loan is, for me, that's almost a non-helpful.
Right.
Because unlike what I thought initially and what majority of people thought initially, because they saw 10,000, it's 1,000 for every employee.
Exactly. That was amended.
So you have employees.
Yes.
I have myself.
Yes.
So I would, if I got it, which I applied, but they have no idea where that stands, no update. You just hope that the confirmation page that
the money's probably already gone.
I don't know. I think there still is more money in that pot, but I don't know. It's very difficult to.
But
keep
at
up.
most, you can only get 1,000.
At most, I can get 1,000.
So yeah, I would say that.
with your wife though, that would make
No,
it.
my wife isn't an employee. She just does that out of the goodness of her heart. Sometimes not goodness.
So I would say most jiu-jitsu academy owners, I would say, are in your like.
I think so as well.
Because
I think
they're not
one to two, 1 to
right.
3.
I'm I was shocked at how many jiu-jitsu academy owners that I know don't have payroll. They pay everybody under the table or it's contractors. Mm-hmm. And this is the time where if you're doing that,
you're going to get hammered. Yeah. So let's talk about the paycheck protection loan. So that loan is designed to protect your payroll, as you suggested. And it's based on your total amount of payroll over 2 months plus 25%. So in people like me, this is particularly challenging because I just pay myself, and I don't pay myself very much. I take as needed. And I was very fortunate that my wife was taking and reporting legitimately on her taxes, taking more out of it, because if she hadn't done that to make our mortgage payment, I don't care. I don't never check my bank account. Like, people don't understand this about me, and it's very difficult that I measure in happiness, not in dollars. And as long as I meet the base commitment to pay for my basic bills and then educate my children, I'm okay. So this is kind of like I think a lot of people are in these unique situations where it's like me. I don't check my account very much. Or this guy, he pays under the table a little bit. We have all these like little things that can greatly impact the Paycheck Protection Program. So I got 2 months worth of pay, which was a big relief to find out that my wife was taking some of that on the books without telling me, because I have a slightly higher loan amount. And then plus 25%. So I get about 2 months of not paying myself and able to sustain the academy if that money was be able to use just for our rent. Now, what you were saying about the forgivableness, it's important to understand that this isn't free money. Right. They gave us a loan, and then we are later required to reapply or apply for forgiveness of this loan based on a couple of criteria. They basically want you to pay all 75% of that towards your employees. If you use it for rent, you can, but it's forgivable at a significantly less amount. I think 40% is the number. Don't quote me on that because I'm not. But that's about what it is. Mm-hmm. We can't fire any employees and we can't reduce the pay. So it's for, if you want to have a loan that's forgivable, it's for your employees. So,
do you know if it includes contractors?
It's going to be on payroll. So if they're not on payroll, they look at your payroll amount overall. From what my tax professional said, they're just looking at the payroll and did you reduce the amount of pay? So in my case, it's particularly troubling, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It places me in a predicament because it wants me to pay all of this money, which I don't think I deserve, to be frank with you. And I don't care about paying myself. I can find ways to scrap a little bit of money to make my mortgage. But my academy is 2 times my mortgage.
Right.
And my mortgage is sustained.
You need the money in your academy.
I need the money to pay my lease. That's what I need to do. And so what I investigated with my the professional is, can I pay myself the money and then give it back to the gym and then write off that as a business expense? And it appears the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
He says he's not going to come after. So this is salvation, but there's all sorts of anxiety attached with an approach like that because you don't know, and neither does the tax guy because they haven't released the detailed guidance. Yeah. Everybody is guessing. Educated guesses based on a very, very loose criteria, but still guessing. So there's that anxiety that's always there. Like, can I do this? Can I pay myself? Do I have to keep a portion of it? Are they going to be kosher with that when they go to forgive our loan? The bank is going to look at all this, and the bank is going to say yes or no.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. Now, in my situation, I think a lot of business owners are in my situation where maybe they've applied for the PPP loan and it's been approved. I'm letting it kind of sit there right now because I don't know whether or not it's the right choice to take this loan. Not just because it may not be forgivable. There might be some things going on in there.
Yeah, with that, is there an 8-week window
in which? That's what I was going to bring up. That was my first thing, is that you better get busy paying people.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But when the 8-week window starts, so we have 8 weeks to make that payroll because it's based on 2 months.
Is it 8 weeks or is it 8 pay periods?
8 pay periods of 1 week.
Okay.
So there you go.
1 week. Okay.
So we have to keep that payroll going.
That's my question.
This is almost an unanswerable question from what I understand. Is that, does that period start from when you get the loan or from your first payment?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not saying that nobody knows. That's not what I'm saying. Is that I'm saying I don't know.
Right. Okay. Actually,
and it appears that is a very gray issue at this moment.
That wasn't my question. I have another question.
What's your question?
The question was, the reason why I'm letting that loan kind of sit there is not just, I gotta take it, is because we're still on stay-at-home orders right now. We're still on. There's nothing for my employees to do. So when do I let my employees get paid through payroll? And
I think that's the intent.
But then it's going to stifle their unemployment.
Well,
that's another thing. And unemployment is the other compounding factor.
Yeah, this is the Rubik's Cube of this current
we
situation.
Are now in this
let me tell you what my tax advisor said we could look at and see if we would come out better with this. Is that I posted this on my social media, is that I'm actually considering, I need to evaluate this option in its totality a little bit more, and perhaps when guidance comes out that's more detailed, is that I'm hiring my wife, paying her the paycheck protection loan, because they just look at your payroll, the total amount of payroll. Did you decrease that total pot of payroll? That would leave me unemployed. I collect unemployment, and then I could then use that to pay my own or to throw back into the gym. So that's the most recent as of today, and by the time tomorrow rolls around, this is going to be outdated information. Perhaps that route was completely null and void and can't do that. But that was the advice of my tax professional.
So today's May 4th. We'll try to get this out to you guys May 5th, if possible.
So I don't know that he would like me to say his name because I'm talking about his finances. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. But one of my friends who's also an academy owner got declined on the PPP loan. I have no idea. This is just based on what he told me. Mm-hmm. So we're running into the daisy chain of information here, which is really bad. But he got declined. That's the end of the story. They said that he didn't have enough employees. He probably just miscalculated the amount.
You have to be very precise.
And I applied a couple of different places, and we were getting kickback on dollar amounts, $1 off from the amount that you did. Now, that was kickback, and we fixed it same day, but we also got kickback, and it took 24 hours to fix, was we were $69 off. And you're talking $69 off on a lot of money.
Right.
It's asinine. It's just like, do it on your own, please. Just give me the darn loan.
Yeah, that's how they get you, though. That's why in one of the previous podcast episodes, I said, look, I'm not completely dumb, but I trust myself. Okay, get an accountant. I had my accountant do everything, and that's probably why I got both loans fairly quickly. It's because everything was done.
When did you get your? Let's talk about this, because a lot of people out there that own jiu-jitsu academies have not gotten their loans. When did you apply? How did you apply? And when did you get it?
So I applied for the disaster loan, which I believe is called the EIDL loan. I applied for that. I think my accountant told me the morning it came out, he applied. It was 4 a.m. in the morning. He applied, so that was very fast, and I was not even one of the first people to get it. I knew people that got it a week before me, and I got that maybe probably almost a month now. It's been a while. The PPP loan I just got recently approved, and it's been sitting there. You actually gave me the idea to apply through different lenders, and that was actually a great idea. I think people who maybe are just going through their own bank right now.
It's an absolute blunder.
Yeah, you have to. The amounts will be different, and you recommended PayPal. I didn't even know PayPal could do this.
And that's why you got it.
PayPal was a small amount, and I it was like less than 10 grand. And then I went through a company called Blue Vine, and they gave me a much larger one. It was about 17,000. And so anyway, so I just got those. I applied. Man, the PPP I applied probably the same. Roughly around the same time I applied for the disaster loan. It's been a month. I applied a long time ago. The banks that I applied though through during that time, like Chase, like Bank of America, they weren't responding. So then when you posted, I was like, oh, let me talk to my accountant. He said, that's a great idea. Let's try. And literally the same week, I got the PPP loan.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of this is like just as a average person. I went through my bank, which I had already done a loan through, successfully paid it back, and had the 8-year relationship with them from the beginning.
This is a regular loan.
In the past. I'm
Okay.
saying I have a relationship with this bank, so I figured that would be the best place to go because they would represent my interests over a random person. So I go and apply the second day. That was the second business day. That was it was a calculated decision because I was busy supplying hospitals with PPE.
Now, real quick, Dan, sorry to interrupt. Were you actually physically going to the bank, or was this all online?
This was all done online and through online procedure. So I applied the second day. That was probably a big blunder on my part, but I started. Some people know this, that the organizing jiu-jitsu people to donate to a cause to supply PPE, protective equipment, for nurses and doctors. And I was receiving reports that day I should have been applying that people didn't have any masks. So I made the choice to go make the delivery, which was quite far, and I didn't get the application in. So second day, that's the long and the short of it. And it took 17 days, and including that drought period where we ran out of money, before it was approved. So just a few days ago, just like yourself, where 17 to 19 days, or I forget the exact number off the top of my head. But when we applied for it the first time, we were under the impression that we applied, okay, we're in line. But that's not the case. Yeah, that was the worst part of it, is that they go, okay, we'll contact you if we need anything else. Well, they contact you 3 days later and say that we need this piece of paper. You immediately provide it. And they go, okay, we'll contact you if we need anything else. 3 days later, we need this piece. Here it is. Like that was the process for 17 days. Yeah. And midway through that, for the second round, I decided to apply on PayPal. And after talking with my tax professional, he says that people are applying for 5, 10, and to get their greatest chances, and you should.
From the same lender, or
no, from all different lenders. What I'm doing, yeah. Because some are fast and some are slow.
Right.
You haven't actually submitted it to the SBA until you sign the DocuSigns and send it in, and then they put you in their queue. Right. Then U.S. Bank or whoever puts there in your queue, and then they send it to SBA, and then you go into SBA's queue. So here you are, all the while thinking that you've applied for a loan, and you haven't done anything. You've done jack, like as far as the official.
Like I said, without you posting that about using PayPal and other lenders, I would have been stuck with Bank of America and Chase probably till the end.
At that time, it was just before the second round was approved. I decided U.S. Bank is just not. They've dropped the ball. So let's try this PayPal. And I didn't even know if that was a risk. What happens when you apply with 2 loans? What if they accidentally give me 2 loans? Are they going to come after me? That's scary stuff. We want our money back. Okay, here it is. But here's the fine. You don't know what the heck is going to go on there.
And I bet you many business owners may accidentally get tangled up in that stuff. They don't know.
Here's the thing, is that to finish that story of PayPal, within 12 hours, I had signed documents. And I still hadn't even done that. And that was 12, 13 days or so after the U.S. Bank one. In 12 hours, I'm signing documents. And they've kept me pretty informed, saying, all right, now you're in a queue. We can submit 100 applicants per hour, and that's the same for everybody. And then they got our queue through, and they told us we were through. And then by that time, I got my U.S. Bank, and they said that they checked our federal ID number, and they rejected. So it was good.
Okay.
I didn't want 2 loans and get into some sort of hot water, which was scary.
I will say is it's pretty comforting to know that I wasn't the only one going through those exact same anxieties of double dipping.
Yeah,
or
we need to like get into the nuance of like what it's like for us.
Oh, the anxiety of
Not just like, we got denied. Oh, we didn't do this. Like without the nuanced conversation.
There's just like
every day. It's
one
a
going
roller
to
coaster.
cancel out the other that delays this badly needed resource?
Every day there's like more uncertainty, and I've kind of passed that threshold because I've gotten the loans out. But I mean, what if like they announce another loan? Then I'm going to be all right.
But even leading up to that, you remember that type of anxiety,
Right.
like just hoping that this form, A, I hope I filled it out correctly,
Right.
but B, if I don't hear anything, am I supposed to hear anything? Am I going to be penalized if I start filling it out again? Is it going to restart the system in which I lose out on everything because the money's gone?
Yeah, I think there's no way around that. I think everybody's going through that. I hired an accountant who is basically working like overtime,
which was solid because both of you, your tax professional, your accountant, they have relations, and you nailed it. That's a key thing that people don't talk about is the relation with these institutions,
right.
And there's value in that.
A lot of jiu-jitsu academy owners are going to be very reserved about contacting an accountant. They don't know who to go to. They don't know who to trust, or there's a mental gap and a financial one as well.
They don't want to pay the money.
Yeah, that's it as well. And in the case of us, is that we're kind of like the small third wheel that attaches to my wife's mom's business. They did their taxes forever. They've had a 30-year relationship together. And so we can just call them any time. There's no bill or anything. We can ask questions. And a lot of people don't have that type of resource. Like some might have an accountant that's training at their gym and might be able to consult.
That happens a lot.
Yeah,
I'd say I know
lawyers and accountants.
I know like 2 to 3 academy owners that use their members as accountants to do their tax. I'm just like, this is kind of weird, but maybe it'll work. All right, let's pivot real quick, Dan, to so we kind of talked about finances, the loans, how your academy's doing, how the money's flowing. Let's talk about just kind of the virus itself, right? So I want to get your take on. There are certain jiu-jitsu academies right now that have decided enough is enough. They have to open. I have said to Jim and to people listening to the podcast, my date is June 1st. June 1st that's the date that I plan on. Not opening and let's start sparring and stuff, but that's the date I would like to open my doors and have guidelines set. Of the academies that are open already and the ones that are probably going to open daily, I think every day there's going to be an academy to open. I know, we said in the beginning, we're not virus experts. What are your thoughts on that, the safety and whatnot?
I don't know. Like, as far as the safety of it, if you're talking about unmitigated rolling, you're talking about the highest risk that's possible with transmitting the virus. Yeah. And, with 150 cluster people or however big your academy is.
That's what a lot of people are doing. They're just going straight into rolling.
Yeah, and you know what? The argument there is like Jason said on his interview with the Nightly News. That's Jason Youssef at Carlson Gracie Irvine. Is that they just accept the risk and deal with the risk, and that they're healthy individuals and can deal with it. And that is going to be an increasing argument because the death rate will be probably anywhere to the 0.5% all the way to 3 or 4%. It's somewhere in that range, okay? So some people are okay with that risk, and they will just say, okay, we're going to roll. And absent of any sort of leadership in the community, that will become more prevalent than it would have been had there been strong leadership to say, here's some policies that we can do to open our doors, but do so in a more responsible manner. Because obviously the argument against that is that it doesn't just affect them and their bodies. They have a very high likelihood of transmitting that to other people in their greater community, and then it eventually comes around to the most vulnerable. So obviously that's the counter argument against that. And it's very hard in our society in general, but especially now, to find any sort of middle way.
Yeah.
Because here's what's going to happen with jiu-jitsu communities. We are either going to be like on the president's phase 1 of reopening, and we will go back to full unmitigated rolling where we're dripping sweat in people's eyes before we should. Or we'll be like in California when we're on the complete last, open in 3 months from now, and then we will also go back to unmitigated rolling. But my point here is that we will either be way before when we should be or way after when we should be. And it's going to be very difficult for us to come in because we're such a niche activity. Nobody's going to be regulating us. We're going to be gyms. In the politician's mind, we are the same as lifting weights and sharing weights. So it's going to be important to say when you do open up, whenever you decide to personally make that choice, if you decide to go against the county or the state or the federal government's orders, that here are some ways to do that in a safer way. So it's kind of like a similar argument to like, I don't know how some families rationalize, you're going to drink alcohol anyway, so why don't you do it at home? You know, it's kind of that same mentality is going to play out. So we need to agree with some sort of leadership role. And I think that leadership role would need to be much higher than you or I are capable of, to be honest with you.
What about the IBJJF?
It would be done by them. But or some of our leading chains. Like my voice, your voice, this podcast voice is not loud enough for that. It needs to be almost like we need to be self-policed.
Is there anybody in jiu-jitsu that has that voice?
Any one person?
No, right?
No. Because the thing is like, let's take somebody like Keenan or Stefan Kesting, who's on the extreme end of like, no, we're not doing it. You have safety. And then you take somebody on the extreme end like Tanner Rice, who opened his two gyms.
Gordon Ryan.
Yeah, Gordon Ryan. It's going to be very hard to form a consensus that's in the middle road around any sort of extreme. And my recommended policies are to really implement a social distancing program as a way to ease back in the super awkward the transitional phase where we're not full rolling yet, but our doors are open. And how do we do that? That is done through any number of creative ways, probably likely grappling dummies.
Let's get into detail here because I'm reading some of your stuff on the Facebook group you created here. Safer return to BJJ in COVID-19. I invited a bunch of academy owners last night. So let's get into detail about this. Masks on, yes, I would assume.
So this is the masks. It's interesting that you lead with that. Probably we should get to masks last. Masks is probably going to be the choice of the individual academy owner. Nobody's going to have a consensus on that, and nobody's going to want to do solo drills and exercises with a mask on. Would it be safer? Yes. Would people do it? I mean, if the academy owner says this is what we're going to do, I need you all on board with that. I understand it stinks. With good leadership, maybe that could work, but I don't think that's particularly the best way to approach it. I think the best way to approach it is going to be through emphasis on the physical distancing between people. And how do you accomplish a successful jiu-jitsu class where inherently to our sport that a close proximity is required? And like the main thing that the main crux of the idea is to tape your mat into segments. What that segment can be up for debate.
Okay, so let's frame this properly. So this is, let's just say you're describing right now is when California says we can or is it next week?
Honestly, no. We're ages away in California.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying what if?
These in California, because you have to understand that every voice that you hear on this issue is coming from a different perspective, in a different place, in a different regulatory environment.
So I'm here in August. I'm here in August is the date.
That's not an unreasonable date.
Which is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, that's not an unreasonable assumption.
Right.
To assume out of the governor's tone.
Okay.
And right now, the governor is giving a speech, which we've had quite a bit of county level defiance.
Okay.
So there might be some easing on that. We don't know, but we're last.
Because I wanted to get your idea of taping the mat and maybe when should academy owner, let's just say you are the leader, Dan, and we are going to listen to you.
I'm not the leader.
You're going to have to be, because it's not going to be me or Jim. Let's just say you are. When do we do this? Should we do this right away?
See, and I've been posting like crazy on my social media about this, is that from a virus perspective, more or less, there's no difference between 8 people 6 feet apart in a clothing store versus a jiu-jitsu academy. It's 8 people 6 feet apart.
As long as we're not, as long as we're apart, right? That's the
as long as we're apart. And we need to self-police because we are in a gray zone. Are we a gym? We are not. We are clearly not an exercise gym. We are clearly not 24-hour fitness. We're clearly not a fitness studio. That depends. There's a wide variety of gyms. Some have a gym component, but I'm saying just our jiu-jitsu component is
So
clearly
phase
not
one-
clicking in that step. In my opinion, it's a wrong approach to take. Let's layer in one industry at a time and then not allow these other industries to meet some sort of universal social distancing guidelines. But it doesn't matter what my opinion is. It doesn't at all. It's not going to change anything. Like, my voice is very small. As a jiu-jitsu community, if we were to completely unite every single person and say, look at the social distancing that we can do, our voice is too small. If we were to do this as an entire martial art industry, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, our voice is too small.
So
if we were
because-
to do this as an entire gym and fitness industry, our voice is too small.
Okay.
So I mean, there's a sense of like hopelessness.
Since you've done a lot of research in this, though, let's just say that tomorrow we can open our business tomorrow, and we have to follow just safe guidelines. You were saying with the taping and how would you do this? So let's get into
How
that.
it is. So
How would
let's
you
say
implement
whatever
this?
reason I decided to open.
Yeah.
And how would
let's
I
just
do
say
it?
yeah.
So first, it's important to note that I did this program.
Okay.
I've already done this program, and I did it for a while before our nation's lockdown. So I divided the mat into roughly 8 by 8 or 10 by 10. Kind of our mat is a little weird. Some areas were 10 by 10, some were 8 by 8. I bought dummies and got them here as soon as possible. I had a spot for me to stream, so there was a supplemental stream, and it was mostly a grappling dummy-based class. We were invited in individually. I limited it to 10, though in reality it was 5 or 6 that showed up maximum. And invited in individually. They assumed their spot in the square. They sanitized their hands when they came in. I did a health screening right as they came in. And then everybody came in one by one. We did the class, and then we left. That's the basics of it. And the details like kind of just spawn out from there. It's like, how do we make this effective and interesting? But there was a simulcast, if you will, a stream going on YouTube, and you can do that on YouTube and on Zoom at the same time and on Facebook at the same time.
Hey,
if you're
Dan,
so inclined.
before we go down that, would you be at liberty to speak on what your health screening consists of?
The health screening is extremely basic. It's just a common sense. So when you say health screening, like it has like a kind of a
like a clinical term,
clinical
right?
term.
Like you're touching my feet and stuff.
Well, just
here's where the rubber meets the road on that. Are you coughing? Get out.
There you go.
That's
Right,
what
there
it
you
is.
go. You have a fever? Get out.
But the fever thing, nobody's coming to jiu-jitsu class with a fever. I mean, even unless it's like a couple weeks before Worlds and things like that, nobody's coming with 103 fever. You know what 103 fever feels like? Like you're dead. I feel that the temperature checks are mostly just lip service to the idea of a health screening. Does it help? Will it catch some? Maybe. But who's coming to jiu-jitsu class with 102 fever? Like even in normal circumstances, that's going to probably keep you home pretty well.
Right.
Like I said, it was just a common sense health screening. No coughing, no sneezing, or you're out.
So what I'm getting with your current or the class that you've tried to run already before the closures is there's no touching, right? There's just
no touching whatsoever.
Everybody's 6 feet apart.
More
than 8 feet apart.
More
than 8 feet, 10 feet apart.
More
than 10 feet apart. Okay, you are the only instructor. Everybody's with a dummy. And I think you made a note that it shouldn't be a cloth dummy. It should be the one with the...
Yeah, so this is an important thing because if you hop on Amazon, you need to be really careful because those cloth dummies, cloth is going to hold the...
Sweat.
It's going to hold the virus quite for a lot longer than you think. And you have classes overlapping. That would be, in my opinion, an irresponsible choice. while you're thinking that you're doing good. I think it's a very poor choice, and the likelihood of some sort of transmission picking it up on your hands and then going into your mouth, nose, or eyes, I think that's a lot high. So those should be a no-go. It might as well. It's not as bad as grappling with one another, but yeah, that would probably be a high-risk area.
So as a business owner, a jiu-jitsu academy business owner, I'm sure I'm not the only person that's going to feel this way, but how you described this class, I can't see myself teaching jiu-jitsu like this. It's going to be difficult. How long would you say, if we started even today, how long would you keep your classes like this for until it is safe to start contact, maybe just not even rolling, but just practicing techniques on each other?
Yeah, so that's like rolling and techniques is going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just contact. Granted, you're breathing harder, so
Sweat.
there is an elevated risk of when you're on all that good stuff. But largely, it's going to have to be self-police. There's nobody that's going to come in and tell us when that time is. We have to use our judgment based on what's going on around us. Basically, if what we're doing in our academies is done everywhere, will it increase, keep the same, or reduce the amount of spread of the virus? So that's the lens in which I interpret it through. If everybody's going around and touching each other, hugging, and all this good stuff, it's not going to matter. What phase will that happen? Will the majority of people be in close contact with groups that are high in number? Probably around that time is the appropriate time to go back to sparring.
That's like the last phase, right?
That's going to be the last phase. And you know what? The reality is that this virus is going to be with us for quite a long time.
Right.
First, we're going to have the antibodies, manufactured antibodies in a big old giant beer vat, basically. Those are going to be first. And if all goes right, that's going to be November. And then that will just reduce the amount, hopefully, of death, reduce further the hospitalization times. That's not going to be a miracle pill. It's going to, people are going to come in too late for manufactured antibodies to help them.
That's not a vaccine.
It's not a vaccine. And a vaccine, I think that's a whole can of worms, because a vaccine needs to be administered to a healthy population. And anytime that you're administering something to a healthy population, you have to get not everybody, but most people. And you can't give it to the sick. You can't give it to the elderly. And we have to have virtually no side effects. All those anti-vaxxers now, where there virtually is no side effects of a vaccine, they're still going crazy. And the amount of safety that it has to have is incredible. And we will do those studies as we administer it. But I'm not as optimistic as some on a little over a year and 6 month time frame on a vaccine. Will we eventually have a vaccine? I think that's likely, given the amount of companies that are working on it. But antibodies first, manufactured antibodies. And I think once the antibodies hit the market, because we're just got them in humans right now. I mean, the first couple of companies, and there's about 200 working on it. I think a lot of people are just going to say, F it, we're just going back to normal. Look, we are.
How does the antibodies work? Do you just
basically? So right now, you can get blood drawn, and if you're PCR positive, and then they'll go through all the safety procedures and everything, then you can have your blood go into one other patient's blood, and this could and likely will have survival benefits. We do this for pretty much like a lot of different diseases.
Is that the same as a blood transfusion?
So it might be different. Like you could just be losing blood and then do a blood transfusion, so you don't die of blood loss.
All right.
So there's a lot of reasons, but so that would be to get somebody who has already had the COVID-19 to get their antibodies in somebody else who is having trouble making the antibodies, or et cetera, is at a later stage or whatever, and have therapeutic effect. The next phase is basically that same idea, but you grow them in a big old vat. And that's what we're working on now, and somebody will be successful. That's a very proven way to treat diseases, and it's easy, and it's already scientifically validated.
And that's a treatment through, it has to be through blood, right? You have to, it's not like a pill or anything, right?
I don't know exactly, because like I said, I'm not an expert.
Right.
but that's the where the rubber meets the road. You really don't care.
Yeah, I guess
there's going to be some moderate amount of treatment, and how that relates to jiu-jitsu is that a lot of people are just going to jump in, probably prematurely as well, and they're going to go from 0 to 100. We need steps that are before 100.
There's people at 100 right now.
Right now.
So I guess for again, I always go back to academy owners. This is a podcast for academy owners. At least this specific podcast we're on doing today. I have a couple big picture thoughts, and Jim, you can chime in too on this one. I am scared of a couple things, of the uncertainty, but mainly I'm scared of this. And I don't want to put out like negative energy or anything, but I just want to put this out there, and I want to see, if there's anything we can do to come with some solutions. I'm scared that jiu-jitsu is already like a niche sport, right? It's already kind of gross to some people, right? Now with this COVID thing happening, are we now going to become a niche of a niche? Is this going to be, before this was going, right? Jiu-jitsu was going strong. Jiu-jitsu academies are popping up. There's at least 20 academies in Pasadena, So now, after this thing's over, I guarantee you half of those are gone. Half of those academies are gone. Are we going to be able to get new signups? How are we going to grow as a business? Because this, you have to grow your member base, not necessarily get past a certain number, but you need to continuously sign people up because there's constantly people dropping. So how do you see the outlook of this, Dan?
So I think if we were to blink our eyes and fast forward to 5 years, we'll be fine.
Okay, that's good. That's a good.
There's very, and when I say we'll be fine, I don't mean me. I don't mean you. I mean jiu-jitsu will be.
How about 1 year?
1 year, 1 year. That's difficult to say. Like, we are really bad at predicting.
Because I don't think most businesses can make it past 6 months.
Absolutely not. And see, the thing is that we cannot continue in California, and I guess that a lot of the nation is opening up to today and yesterday and over the weekend.
Georgia.
But we cannot continue like this.
Right.
It's just not sustainable on a civilization level. So the fact that, like, we will not be like this for two more years, a year and a half more, or even a year more, simply because we can't. There's no option. So you're either talking about the collapse of Western civilization or people starting to really open up. And we're going to see people open up. And it might be this phase where it's like open up, close down, open up, close down. We might go through that type of phase, which is equally is not equally, but very highly economically challenging to do that, especially in a sport where we rely on consistent membership attendance. It's not like you take a class and then, like, we don't see you, and then you can take another class here and there. Like, we rely on consistent attendance base.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people will not be fine. I think a lot of people will go out of business because right now, like, how many people have 3 months savings? I had 3 months savings, which is a lot for a business. That's $20,000. Like, 3 months pad. I think that's above what most academies have.
You're 2 months ahead of most academies.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
2 months ahead of most academies, and that's honest.
3 to 6 months, any financial advisor will tell you, is the goal. That's the goal. If you
6
get
months,
6
and
months.
I'm on 6 as a personal, because personal that's just a matter of thousands. And for a gym, the forward operating costs is on the order of tens of thousands. Like, that, it's amazing to have 3. Like, I'm very glad that I had 3.
Has your landlord given you any breaks?
I haven't reached out to my landlord.
You have not reached out to your landlord?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And this is on principle, actually, because there's a whole chain economically that happens here.
This is a good point.
There's the chain from student to us, from us to the landlord, from the landlord on up. And it's my responsibility to try and put a stop to that chain. So if I'm asking my students, like, come on, I know Zoom isn't ideal. Grappling dummies stink. I know we all want to roll. To our adult students, this is more the language I would use, not the kids or the juniors. I know we all want to roll, but this is what we have to do to get through this time. If you support me, I can make it through. If we keep, this amount of membership, we can make it through and we can keep going. If I'm asking that of my students to keep paying me, who am I to ask my landlords to say I'm not going to continue to pay my rent? I will continue to pay my rent as long as I have money in my account. Because, I have good landlords. They're good people. He's a good person. And if I don't pay him, it's just out of his pocket, and it just continues.
Have they reached out to you at all?
No.
Okay.
So I think they're just as scared. Here's another thing. They're as scared probably to reach out to us.
Right.
Like, I just want to be quiet, and I want to do what I need to do to pay the rent and not have to beg, not have to do anything. And however I get it done, I get it done. And on the first of the month, I'm getting it done. And from his perspective, it shouldn't matter how I did it. Okay. And so that's what I'm trying.
That is another very admirable thing. A lot of people will say that and not put their money where their mouth is. I will tell you, Dan, from my point of view, I couldn't do that. And immediately when this thing happened, me and my landlord became profit share partners. I said, look, if I make money, you're going to get some portion of it, or probably like all of it. But I'm not going to make any money, so we're now.
Now profit sharing.
We are literally profit sharing.
How long?
For the until I can open my doors, at least. That's the minimum. I'm getting some donations. I'm getting some Patreon stuff. I'm funneling in my own money. So that was one of the drawbacks of, I guess, just stopping all memberships is this, right? It's zero income coming in. So.
And I think between the both of you, what's going on here is there are multiple ethical options to go about things, because I think both of your guys' approach is pretty.
What I think isn't
fair.
ethical would be a gym owner that is asking their members to support the academy
and then not pay rent.
Not paying rent.
Especially as an obligation.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. I can tell you right now, there's many gym owners doing that now that I know personally, and I don't agree with it, but somebody's gonna take advantage in a time like this, and it's gonna be, people aren't gonna forget this. So it's gonna be what it is.
There's such a wide variety of reactions. It was really disheartening. Right before I got here, I read a thread on Reddit. And the academy owner said something to the effect of he will give everybody that's a member a free private lesson for 30 minutes. And the overwhelming response was negative on Reddit. In part, like, overwhelming. Like, go on there. Like, that right now.
In exchange for what?
For those that keep paying. Now, I don't know the specifics of the situation, and neither do the people who are reacting to it. I don't know. Is he doing Zoom classes? Is he providing instructional material, or is he just giving a lesson? They seem to have a problem with the word free, just because he said free. Like, come on, like he's trying. Free. Do you realize how hard it is to give any level of private lesson to an entire academy base? Can you imagine doing that? That's like for 10 hours every day you're going to be giving lessons.
That's a crazy amount of time.
Yeah, it is a crazy amount of time.
And it's an effort, though. He's making an effort.
Yeah, he's making an effort
to create value.
But there's a couple of points, and I'm going to forget them all by the time I cycle through them, is that your perspective on this as a student largely depends on how your academy treats you. Are you the academy that requires the gis, and you had this gi prior to coming in, and they said, no, buy our $200 gi? Here's your promotion to blue belt. By the way, that'll be $20 for the blue belt because I had to buy the blue belt. Like, all these sorts of things are going to impact people's perception. Both those that are reacting, because they'll superimpose their on academies, like, just kind of status quo on top of that situation. And it's wildly different. Like, a lot of academies have very, very close relationships with their instructor and long-term relationships. And a lot of academies, it's a business. Right. And I think that's like somebody that's offering free private lessons for 30 minutes, honestly, is not going to be that type of guy who's just like, just going to probably be on the more shark end of the business spectrum, if I had to guess.
Yeah. It's a lot of time to
that I have to stay off Reddit, and I normally kind of check that once every 3 days or so just to see what's going on in the community and what people are talking about. But during this, I've really had to restrict it because, like, stuff like that hurts. It really does. Like, that could have been my student. It wasn't, because I didn't do that at my gym, but that could have been my student. And I don't care if one student says that. Like, if I'm trying my best. I'm not even trying my best to put food on my family's table and pay my mortgage. I'm trying the best to make my gym not go under. That is my number one goal.
Right.
I will move before that gym goes under. I will sell my house. and I have plenty of equity to live for the next, whatever many years in my house. Like, the gym is my scariest.
Hopefully you don't do that.
And that would be horrible. That would be horrible for my kids. But my point here is that most academy owners are trying their very, very hardest, and they're trying to improvise. And in goodwill, I would imagine some email like that taking place. And just to hear that as another academy owner who's also trying to provide as much service and as much benefit through this time, honestly, it made my stomach sink even as I said it to you.
Yeah, I think
there's like 100 upvotes of like, F that, quit them. Like,
so I think this is something I noticed on Reddit. I'm a Reddit lurker. I've noticed this from the beginning of this coronavirus outbreak until now. Is in the beginning, right? Everybody was very gung ho about, of course I'm going to keep paying my gym. It's just going to go away. I need to have a gym when it comes back to. And it just the attitude kind of turned to, well, my gym's not giving me the value. There's Zoom classes. I'm not really going to them. How long do I have to keep
it's
paying?
Yin and yang. Yeah,
it doesn't last forever.
That's a legitimate conversation. That's a legitimate thing to start to ask. But everybody in this entire situation needs to have a little bit more compassion, empathy, and sympathy. To everybody, I need to have compassion to my landlord. I need to have compassion to my students if they can't pay or whatever, because a lot of people are hurting too. And I think if just everybody had a little bit more of those qualities, that it would help each other through this really, really challenging time for everybody.
Yeah, I see a problem online anyway with vehement opposition. Like, if you have some thought that counters mine, right? I'm not only going to vehemently oppose you, I'm going to shame you, I'm going to tell you all these things, and that's, I think, a big problem online.
That's just online. That's not jiu-jitsu.
That's just
people.
And I
That's
think
the anonymity of social media, or partial anonymity, because like somebody like me, I'm not famous, but I'm not anonymous. There's no doubt I'm not anonymous. I post stuff on my Facebook page. It ends up on Jiu-Jitsu Times. Like,
oh, you're well known.
But like, when an anonymous talks to an unanonymous, there's like that, kind of discrepancy in anonymity.
Yeah. Okay. So before we close up, Dan, so I know you had the plan to run the Zoom classes with the dummies. I know you said basically that it was we gotta just wait and see. Give us a time frame here. Is there a
you want to know dates, and you want to know what to do.
I want to know
what boil it down. I'm opening up on the 11th with my dummy program. This is against my state and my city's guidelines. It is with my county's guidelines. I'm going to do that, implementing the program at 10 or less, and nobody will come within 15 feet of each other. That's what I'm going to do. I'm willing to be arrested for that. And there's a high likelihood that there will be fines or maybe even a misdemeanor arrest for failure to comply to disperse on an unlawful assembly.
Is there a
That's
way
what I'm doing.
What if you invite the police department?
I already have
to train or something.
Yes, so that's another avenue, but it won't work. You're not going to pay your lease with this.
And you said the 11th. You're speaking of May.
I'm speaking of May. I'm opening.
Okay.
May 11th.
And this is in part to, like, when we were talking earlier, I was talking as far as what like the masses should do, and that's a lot different from what you're going to do, because those are two different questions. One, you have the responsibility of suggesting what everybody should do versus what you're going to do, and that might be a little bit different, and it might differ from county to county, and from area to area, and from gym to gym. Some can't implement these types of things. So the first point is a larger protest of how the social distancing rules work as far as blanket bans on industries. If, for example, a movie theater, which is they will be months away from opening up, several, 2 to 3. If they want to open their movie theater and limit their theater to 10 people and charge $1,000 a head for that, who am I to stop them? If they can make a business case out of that, let them try. And if not, they'll stay closed. Why would you not give the opportunity for innovation? For AMC, for Regal, that's not going to make any sense. They're going to stay closed. Look at Texas. They just opened up, and all of their museums, all of their movie theaters that I could find, trust me, I want to go somewhere, they're all closed on their own accord because they couldn't make it work with the 25% capacity rule that they have in Texas and the social distancing rules. They said, I don't know how to do it. But take, for example, a boutique movie theater that has a couple of theaters, and they seat total anyway 50 people, like in Brea. This is the Brea Cinema 5.
Right.
And they show old movies from 1950. Right. Who's to stop them from having 10 people in at a certain distancing spacing apart? Or 10, I'm just making up a number. It couldn't be any number. So the unevenness, when you try and apply these blanket bans on an industry, there's so many that can comply easily with even the most extreme, a gathering of 2 people spaced 50 feet apart, like a CrossFit gym. You're a personal trainer. You can easily just schedule one person. You can have one guy over there. You yell them to do stuff and say, good job. You did great today. Good. See you later. Out the door, you sanitize the gym. Next guy comes in. Why should you be banned when the risk of virus transmission in that type of setting is very low? What we should be doing is we should be implementing uniform guidelines and that are applied evenly across all non-essential industries that are gradually relaxed. And if you want to make those incredibly tight, you can only have a one-on-one basis with your client. Like if you want to show a movie for $40,000 and somebody will pay it, you should not be closed.
Somebody might pay.
Yeah. But that example is to highlight the ridiculous nature. Yeah. Like nobody's going to do that, but at least give them a chance to try.
Right. It's like me personal training you in this room and then comparing this to like 24-hour fitness.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
So,
no, it's not.
So my opening is a protest of that, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of other people that are doing this, but I think they lack the articulate nature to describe what they're after. Right. I don't mind being closed if everybody else is closed. But if you can go shopping for clothes and they're limited to 10 people, how is this any different from a jiu-jitsu academy just because it's jiu-jitsu that's making modifications to have the same type of social distancing? Right. So that was my first, is like a larger protest within this context. And my second is I need to have some sort of example out there that's countering what others are doing with unmitigated openings. I need to show other people that there is a way to do this in a safer way, even if you choose to disobey, which a lot will. Like there's a few now, there's Tanner, there's Jason, there's a few, and a couple on the down low, but there are a few that are doing it publicly. I need to have some alternate voice saying, here's a path that you can follow. If you also want to open out of desperation or out of the absurdity of the blanket bans and doing it in a safe way, because we can't have 0 to 100. Yeah. We need 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75.
Don't be an outlaw.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a difference between being disobedient and irresponsible and being disobedient and responsible. And I hope to provide a rallying point for those that are in that same mental framework of we're going to be disobedient, we're going to open up because A, I don't have any choice, and B, the data in our state is very favorable for reopening, which is why our state, or in part reopening. When you say reopening, that's often lumped in as like, all right, back to normal, go. But to not have a stay-at-home order, our state is very much ready for that
Let's
type of thing.
fast forward 2 months from that date, the May the 11th.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's go 1 month past it. June 11th.
Yes.
What changes in your academy, assuming nobody is going to, tell you to do anything differently?
What changes? I don't know.
Because you have lights.
A lot of people right now are opening up. Counties. Like there's it's not me that's rebelling only. It's counties. Their official status is forget you. We're opening. We're going to protect our citizens to open. So there's a lot of that going on. And when that goes on, we could see a mild uptick, which is, okay, not a big deal. We could see a major uptick.
Outbreaks.
Yeah,
outbreaks.
The outbreaks.
Okay.
If it's irresponsible to continue what I'm doing, I will stop immediately in the context of what's going on in my community, my city, my county, and my state. Mm-hmm. So it's impossible to say where I'll be by then, but I would fathom to guess probably largely where we are now. This social distancing program is not to get new students. I will get 0. Actually, I signed up 1 student.
Good.
That was the throughout this pandemic, I've signed up 1 student, and it made my day. I didn't care that I also lost 4 students that day, but I signed up 1, and I almost wanted to cry. It was really moving to have that type of action going in.
Can you describe how did you get to sign up?
It was a friend of my wife's looking for something to do and wanted to do the Zoom. Yeah, it was a referral. Went to school at my son's school, and he tried the class, and they.
Is a kid.
Is a kid.
Okay.
And they said that they loved it.
So I guess that's one way to kind of for academy owners to see if they can get more not more, but just get.
Yeah, it would have to be grassroots, but it's not going to be effective. You won't sign up anybody.
Really?
No, you won't.
I was hoping maybe
you won't.
You'll
sign up 1 or 2, like if you really try, but you won't get anybody. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I would like to just kind of highlight something that was briefly touched upon when we first started this podcast, and your rollout phase, what you're proposing here, Dan. It includes a key component of what we mentioned, and that's leadership. And I think that's very important because some people may accidentally get it right. You said Tanner, the Rice brothers, they opened up their academy. My opinion is pretty haphazard in the way in which they went about it.
And just so you know, just to interject something, they will get students because of this. If you're first and disobedient like that, you're going to cater to that crowd, and they'll support you.
To a crowd, right.
So what I'm doing will get no new students.
Well, but and this is to the point I was about to make. It's, and in that sense, and when you're looking through the lens of business, whether it's good or bad business, neither here nor there, but it could be something that benefits them at the end. They accidentally got it right. That's what I would kind of categorize that as.
Usually the extreme ends of these things are not in that, but I could be wrong. Usually
I wouldn't necessarily call. Well, I mean,
being
again,
the first to disobey is pretty extreme.
It's pretty extreme, but neither here nor there. My point is who knows what happens from all this, and they may accidentally get it right. Like a broken watch is right twice a day, right? So there's that. But then everything that you laid out as a plan and a rollout, to me, that is my definition of good leadership. We talked about that earlier, whether it's regional leadership, community, what state, whatever world leadership. There's grown-ups in the room, and you have a system, and you are willing, if it looks like I'm going to assess this, and if it looks like that I am part of the problem by doing this, you just you'll pull the plug. Like, we'll think of something else.
Like my maximum influence is like on 6 gyms total. Like, and that's a drop in the bucket.
But the crazy thing is you're the only one, and I'm pretty close to the community. I look at a lot of stuff. I'm on Reddit. I'm on the forums. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all these social media platforms. I'm on Instagram. You're the only one that's actually put out something resembling a plan. It's actually a very good plan. You're the only one. I don't.
I'm not the only one. So like Chris and Stephen Kesting
have
put out stuff, but they haven't implemented it. I've already implemented it.
You're right. Stephen has put out something.
Yeah. So and today, just before this, he released on his website, and it's more detailed in phases. I have not digested it completely, and it deals a little bit more negatively, even though it's not in my plan with antibody testing, as well. So there is some like Tom down in Carlson, Gracie, Temecula, who is doing antibody testing and using that as a metric. So that's another thing as well, another component, and they're recommending against that. And you're going to get disagreement on all these points as well. But if I were to provide that said leadership, I mean, you can follow me. There's nothing stopping you from following me. But if I were to provide that said leadership, and then I'm like, okay, guys, it's time to open. The criticism to that is incredibly easy. Is like, you're not a public health expert. Like, you're not a professional. And you have no right to tell people when they cannot open. That's the obvious criticism there.
Well, if you've been somebody that's done the research and you're evidence-based, I would believe you over, let's say, Tanner, who just kind of said, I need to open for financial reasons. And I don't fault him. I don't judge him on that. It's just, it is what it is, But your way, if it's based off of the research, based off of science, I at least can fall back to say, well, maybe Dan's not a expert on these types of diseases, but he's done his research, and he's a credible leader in that sense. And
to that, you mentioned a key little detail is that you're not telling anyone what to do. Yeah. That's a very crucial point. You're not telling, but it's what you're willing to do, what you're willing to offer, and hey, let's see what happens.
I'm going to do this. You want to do it? Great.
Right. And the act is the leadership. The act is the leadership.
Yeah, but when you say that somebody I've digested the research, is that there is no consensus on the vast majority of, not vast majority, I don't want to say that, but there's a lot of issues where there is no consensus in the scientific community.
There's a lot of nuance.
And what people I think fail to understand is that science is an ongoing conversation. It's not that science says this. That's how it's often presented, is that we, as a scientific community, they'll often try and present consensus towards an issue. Right. And the reality of the fact is that there is a very, very wide spectrum of legitimate scientific viewpoints, all based on research within the same issue. It's the number of native South Americans that we killed by smallpox, 100 million, or is it 7 million? You have high counters and you have low counters, each with their own evidence to support their claim. And it's only through decades that stuff starts to come through and have some sort of more consensus. I mean, this stuff takes time. The conversation takes time. So it's not like you can't say that Dan's thing is science-based and this is what science says. I think that's a very, very dangerous line to go down. I think we can call it,
we don't want to call it science-based, but we want to call it evidence-informed, probably, something like that. You're at least using the evidence to inform your decision. Science is part of the evidence. Another part of the evidence is business ownership.
Yeah, there's many factors.
There's a lot of things.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's really saying that this is a scientific approach that you're taking, but I think everyone could agree
it's a systematized approach.
Yeah, to an informed decision making with the best information available.
I think that something is better than nothing. A plan is better than no plan. And I'm going to be honest, I don't have the time right now to come up with a plan like this. You do, and you kind of you've done it. I have too many other things in the fire right now, and I'm trying to keep this academy alive by not by coming up with solutions for the academy, but making money outside the academy and putting it into the academy, which may not be the best way to do things.
No,
that's just how
a legitimate approach.
That's just my approach. I just have to do it that way. So anyway, I think we pretty much got, I think, a good system. We have some good discussion on how to safely return back to reopening a BJJ Academy. I try to keep everything kind of concise. Is there anything else, Dan, that you want to get out there for academy owners? I just want to help academy owners, business owners, martial arts academy owners get back to just opening and just having a business.
Bottom line, if you choose to open, please consider doing it in a mitigated as opposed to unmitigated way. I think this is responsible for your students, who will have some sort of outlet coming there and at least participating on some level, as well as being socially responsible.
Excellent. Jim, you got anything?
No, I think with these times, there's going to be a lot of creativity out there, and I think that's good and correct doses and approached in the correct way, which is the mitigated. I'm all for mitigated, but I think there's going to be a lot of good ideas, a lot of bad ideas out there, and it will be interesting times to see how our community does rebound. But hearkening back to a question that was posed earlier, how long will it take? Will jiu-jitsu ever be the same? I tend to think that, for better or for worse, people have short memories. And I do think a few months after living the good life, everything kind of normal. Not saying it would take a few months, but I think after a few months, people will start beginning to be who they are. And our memories, just like in the past, they're rather short sometimes. So that's it. That's my 2 cents.
That would be nice. I really hope you're right, Jim. But again, we have to be safe with, this thing, right? So other than that, let's wrap it up here. So thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, wherever you are. Thank you to Dan, Mr. Trumpet Dan,
Trumpet
right?
Dan.
Trumpet Dan.
Yeah, explain to people how you got that.
I was a music teacher
Music
before.
teacher.
Yeah, elementary school music teacher.
If you know Dan on the internet, he is known as Trumpet Dan.
Yeah.
He's
I
got
don't
a
play
lot of-
anymore. I'm completely retired.
Okay. Your academy, Dan, is in Brea
Jiu-Jitsu.
Brea Jiu-Jitsu, Brea, California, just right down the road here. If anybody wanted to help you out, and maybe, I know you were doing some stuff for the medical community. Is there anything right now you're doing that people can donate to?
So I did that PPE fundraising effort. That's a complex discussion, but I felt that the need was served, that
Okay.
I could fill on the scale that I was doing it. The best way to support me, honestly, is to just watch the free content that I'm putting out. I do an analysis video every single day.
It's on your or it's on
Brea Jiu-Jitsu's Facebook page.
You still have the collar sleeve?
Collar and sleeve. Yes, I do.
Talk about that.
I have an instructional video, collarsleeve.com. It's on the collar and sleeve.
You know what?
guard.
I'm going to give you an endorsement for that right now because I have consumed a lot of jiu-jitsu content. Okay, your DVD, your it's like a DVD, right? I don't know what you call
download,
it. Like a
digital
digital
download.
download.
Yeah.
Is probably one of the best guard instructionals I've ever seen, and most importantly, there's a position known as the omoplata crucifix. I have never seen anybody teach that position properly or as concisely as you have in that digital download. So if you have not gotten collar and sleeve, what is the whole
Collarandsleeve.com.
Collarandsleeve.com. There it is.
Collarsleeve.com.
Collar sleeve. Collar sleeve.
Don't add the and. That was I did jujitsu.net, which was a very innovative idea, and I think ahead of its time. Basically, everything was interpreted as far as graph theory. So basically, an enormous mind map to the extent that none of you have even seen. Several thousand techniques, finally segregated from one to the next, and you can run some algorithms to take them on custom curriculums and things like that. Very ahead of its time. I'm not updating it anymore. But that was very piecemeal. It was very awkward to try and teach such a small amount, which would allow you to take all these different forks and then have all the forks meet up in a graph, a graph theory graph, that is. And so this was kind of my experiment, if you will, collarsleeve.com was in just completely from record to end, just seeing what I could do as a teacher with my teaching chops, not breaking it down into anything, which is part of its allure and part of its frustration, I guess, because I just do it uncut, completely uncut teaching, which allows if I have talent, it allows it to come through in that format because I can gently craft certain things over time and other things. Yeah, it just kind of allows that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So it's $15.99.
$15.99. Jesus, that's underpriced. Well, one of these days, Dan, I want to get you back and we're going to actually talk about jiu-jitsu because I know this guy, I'm telling you, is one of the best kept secrets in gi jiu-jitsu. He doesn't like no gi. I don't know why.
No gi.
But gi,
because I want to go to heaven.
I'm telling you, gi jiu-jitsu and competition-based jiu-jitsu, there is not a guy better than Dan. Collarsleeve.com. Check it out. Jim, any last words?
No. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate your time here. And everyone, thanks and be safe, be well.
Thank you. We'll come back strong.